Hey everybody, Economic Ninja here. I'm going to talk about something that's I've touched on briefly before, but we're going to go right into it today, and that is the possibility of another coin shortage. And I brought on today Patrick HighSmith, a geologist with over 32 years of experience. And Patrick actually right now, well, actually, let me have you introduce yourself. You could do it better than me, Patrick. How you doing?
I'm well, Travis. Good to be with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. And I want to touch on, so you're the president and CEO of a company, a gold resources company, right? Timberline?
That's right. I'm currently CEO of Timberline Resources, a gold company exploring in Nevada.
Yep. And then you also are the chairman of another company, correct?
That's right. I'm putting a lot of my focus on gold these days, Travis, and I'm chairman and co-founder of a company called Firefox Gold, which is doing gold exploration in Finland. But 32 years in this business, I've worked on a lot of commodities, on a lot of projects around the world.
Exactly. And so I heard about you and your love for geology, I was told, is well, it's unparalleled, let's say, to a lot of the people in the industry. You really like the resource sector. And I wanted to talk to you about something that actually wasn't related to gold today, and that was the coin shortage, because there's been a coin shortage in 2020. Now, all of a sudden, there were signs coming up in July of 2021. And I think it's really interesting because, like the picture behind you, you have a interest in properties that have not only gold but other materials in it, like copper and zinc, and or not copper but zinc and other metals, and that's what we find in our coinage. So I wanted to sort of dig down on what you think about the coin shortage, how much coins are worth these days, and where we see the future going.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? We're out there looking for gold, which is currency, of course, but we don't have gold in our money. It's primarily zinc, nickel, and copper that comprise the coinage that we spend. So I wish we were all carrying around gold coins, but since we're not, we've got a real crunch here, as you pointed out. But let's remind ourselves, as the Fed has freely admitted, and the Mint, it isn't really a shortage per se. I mean, they printed more coins in 2020 than they did in 2019. But boy, the distribution, a lot of businesses closing with sort of coinage in their shops that isn't getting circulated, right? So the consumer, the average American, is certainly feeling it as a shortage, and we see those signs, don't we, when we're at the retail stores? But yeah, it's kind of a shortage, at least in terms of circulation.
So I'm glad you brought up circulation, because a lot of my videos on the channel talk about some supply shortages, the supply chain and how it works. I usually like to attribute it to a traffic pattern on a freeway when you're going to pass somebody and someone jams on their brakes, and before you know it, a mile down the road, everything's stopped. So getting into the actual coin shortage, like you said, it's not exactly what it is or what it appears to be, what to the American public. So let's talk about values of the actual coins. Right now, a penny sitting at about 2 cents to produce 1 penny. And a penny isn't exactly copper anymore, correct?
Oh, that's right. I mean, today a penny is dominantly zinc, but there's a bit of copper in there for color mostly.
Exactly. And I believe it was 1982 was the last time a penny was legitimately made out of copper.
Sounds about right. I don't remember the exact day, but yeah.
I love separating my copper pennies from the fake ones. So I've got a little trash can in my house. I just put all the copper pennies in there. And then a nickel is about 7.5 cents right now to produce. So it looks like the Fed's actually losing money by producing these coins right now, correct?
That's right. And we've seen initiatives in Congress. And then, of course, the Fed and the Mint themselves have talked about this business of printing and minting our coins and our paper currency. And while, as you just pointed out, based on materials and costs of minting those coins, they're losing a bit. But then they turn around and say, but we're making so much because it only takes us 5.5 cents to print $1. And of course, that's worth $1, right? So yeah, that's how they're selling it to us. And Congress and others have tried to be practical about this. Maybe we don't need the penny. Maybe we start there, for instance. In Australia, I recently spent some time in Australia. And of course, they have a 2-cent coin, but not a 1-cent coin anymore.
See, and that's really interesting, because I'm always looking for behind the scenes, what's going on, the narrative, if the narrative is different than reality. And I also I like to see sort of project things in the future. And I'm sure in the mining industry, you guys are always looking at the future because you're looking at the viability of properties being able to actually, there might be one thing to say, hey, there's a lot of metal in the ground. There's another thing to say, how much is it going to cost us to get it out of the ground, right? So something that's really interesting is there's an interesting narrative going on. And there's a famous quote that says something like, never let a good tragedy go to waste. I'm sure you've heard that, right?
Oh yeah, a good crisis. I think
A
Rahm
good
Emanuel
crisis.
said that. Yeah.
Exactly. So right now we have one heck of a narrative, let's say, that's been built that, the reality is the government's saying, hey, there's a lot of hoarding going on. You're holding on to these coins and they're not circulating properly. So get out there. You talked about when we were talking earlier today about a initiative that was put out there of hoarding and consumers shouldn't hoard coins and help the small business out. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then we're going to go a little deeper down that rabbit hole.
Well, I thought it was interesting when the Coin Task Force was formed last year. And by the way, out of the several groups that are represented on the Coin Task Force, 3 of them are banking groups, professional associations of bankers and such. So found that interesting. And only one was retailer representatives. So I found that a little interesting. But part of their guidance to us was, get out there and do your part as a patriotic American. And all those coins you're hoarding at home, get those into circulation, take them to the bank, take them to a coin kiosk and redeem those, convert those to cash, deposit them in your accounts. And so they're circulating again. Well, if these things have value, some of us, you mentioned your copper coins. I've got a lot of silver coins and some copper coin as well. If those things are worth something, maybe hoarding them isn't a bad idea, even though the word sounds negative, but there is metal there. And the other thing to remember, Travis, and you mentioned we in the mining industry, the way we look at this, and the first thing I did when I started hearing about the coin shortage was I looked at mine production of these metals and price cycles over the last few years.
Yep.
And certainly mine production has been falling in nickel, copper, and zinc, certainly over the last several years. And furthermore, prices have responded accordingly. And in the last 5 years, you can see a 200% swing, more than 200% swing in each of these 3 primary coin metals. So it's real, but why is it real? Is that an erosion of the value of the US dollar in which these things are priced? Or is it the inputs are actually costing more, it takes longer to permit mines, it takes longer to bring new mines into production? So there are many things in here, but I did find that hoarding element. If these things are valuable, maybe people are holding on to them for a reason. So that was the kind of implication it had for me.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I look at the word hoarding as like you're essentially demonizing, or you're just a natural action. You're turning into a negative, and I don't like seeing that. And usually when that happens, my spidey senses jump up, and I start thinking, okay, what's going on behind the scene? And I remember a very wealthy individual, and I'm blanking on the name right now, that was literally hoarding, going out and buying as many nickels as possible. And I want to say this was around 2015. Do you remember who I'm talking about? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm totally blanking out. It was,
yeah, I remember
it was a fund manager, and it's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm putting you on the spot. I don't know it. And the reason why I say that is because I remember them coming out and saying, look, the value of a nickel is exploding right now, because at that point, metal had surged. Well, now we have something really interesting happening. We have, to say inflation is understated. And I know a lot of the human population has not experienced what I'm talking about just yet, but with the creation of all this new money worldwide, especially through the Federal Reserve, we're about to start seeing commodities increase, right? Because that is just the ebb and flow of how currency affects commodities, right? When you have more currency chasing fewer goods, that's what happens. We also have a supply shortage due to the supply chain breakdown. And I wanted you to talk about that because you've seen it very firsthand in the mining sector. And then I want to play it into how this could affect the cost of change and maybe really push the Fed and the government to want to get rid of this. So if you could tell me what you were telling me a little earlier about what you saw as far as, because I thought it was an employment issue, but you actually corrected me.
Yeah, what we've seen let's just talk about the pandemic, which is fresh in everyone's mind, and is one of the factors here for sure. In fact, a number of these metals reached their nadir in the last 5 years at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, of course, and then things sort of rebounded, and gold didn't do that so much, but many of these more industrial metals did. But what happened, of course, during COVID is a number of sectors of economies were shut unless they were, quote, essential.
Yep.
In places where I've been working in North America and in Finland, for instance, we had exploration and mining declared as essential in fairly short order, and many of the mines, most I'll say of the mines, stayed open. But of course, now we have a case where in the United States, with enhanced unemployment benefits and other incentives, there was a portion of the labor force that sort of made more money by staying home than working.
Yep.
So that's a factor of labor that's lost to the market. And we experience some of that in mining. But as you ramp up to a skilled miner or a trained geologist or engineer, that skill set still makes much more money by working than staying home. And those jobs mostly were sustained. However, around the world, that isn't always true. Some countries shut down their economy almost entirely. Others, it was transport that was the key link. So market disruption, I guess, is how I would call it, Travis. Serious market disruption. And we do see that. And we've seen several of these metals racing forward this year, in particular, copper, nickel, zinc, coming off sort of 7 years of declining production and everything. Things are picking up now. But then superimposed on that, all sorts of fun things, good things for the economy, like technological changes, straining copper and nickel, for instance, with the electrification of cars and other aspects of the economy. So really complicated. I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but I think you're right. I think that labor force and the sort of shutting in of aspects of the economy, we still see it today in distribution of things like toilet paper and paper towels and trucks and trains and all of that, still affected even today.
Yeah. So, I look at, what we're seeing right now with the chip shortages and all that stuff, everything comes down to materials and labor, right? And so we're seeing that in those sectors, and everyone's being affected because they're buying new cars. But I don't think anyone's paying attention to what is happening in the mining sector, because if we have a slowdown in the ability of companies to go and source the material out of the ground, it takes a lot longer for a mining company to ramp up, as opposed to a chip manufacturer that just lost a building. It's got to build the building and just start building more chips, as long as it has those materials there. But once the materials don't show up, we could see a shortage on all kinds of different levels, correct?
Absolutely. The dominoes fall in our business like any other, but they fall slower. And what I mean by that is the permitting lead time on a mine. What if you were just beginning development when COVID hit? And then you had key laborers or essential design engineers who couldn't travel internationally or something like that to build your mine in Peru or Chile. That then has a huge lag time. It's like burning a fuse, because that mine takes several years to build, takes several more years to permit, and several more years before that to find the bloody thing. So depending where you are in the cycle, I would say these things are amplified very much in our business. And so we in the mining industry, we really like to try to reach out to folks and communicate about the things in your life that come from mining, some of which are coins, as we're discussing today. There's a supply chain there that's longer and more complicated than in many other businesses.
I'm glad you brought up communicating, because I meant to say this at the beginning, but I'm glad I didn't, because I wanted people to get to know you and what we're talking about with this coin shortage. When we're talking about communicating, we're actually going to see each other, and that's what got us to talking up in Coeur d'Alene pretty soon, correct?
That's right. The Silver Symposium later this month, great gathering of silver and gold explorers and miners in Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah, so people are going to be able to approach you, and I wanted to get you on so that they can get to know what you're doing and stuff, and know that it sounds funny because you think about a mining or a precious metals or a materials expo, and you just think about a bunch of boring people. But what's going on in your sector is you guys are talking about all of this stuff. You're talking about not only material shortage, actual precious metals, base metals, things like that, but you guys are having issues with the supply chain right now. So trying to figure out the logistics, what company is going to beat the next company about being able to get the material to the market faster. I mean, this is a whole new world for you guys, right? I mean, it's older. It's problems there's always been there, but to say that it's ramped up now is probably an understatement, correct?
It's acute right now. The fact is these shortages, whether they're real or supply chain induced or labor induced, they're factoring into the prices of these metals, and that's telling us about demand.
Yep.
So what we're out there doing, and what we're going to be talking about in Coeur d'Alene, is finding more of this metal, and whether it be copper, nickel, zinc, or gold, silver, we're going to be talking about finding more of it and getting it to market. The mining industry is trying to respond to these signals. And whether that's producing these metals for coins or copper, nickel, and lithium for your electric vehicle, we're trying to respond to that. And so these symposia are a great opportunity for us to meet really, frontline investors. And I'm talking not fund managers, although those guys are great too, but those who are just learning about the metals sector. And you'd be surprised, sometimes these guys will really want to come into your booth and look at rocks and talk about the science and technology behind it. And other times they just want to hear about maybe what our forecasts are for these metal prices. We're just as full of crap as everyone else when we try to forecast that, but we sure get asked the questions a lot.
Yeah, I always say that my goal is to be the dumbest guy in the room, and to say that I've hit the mark with going to the Silver Symposium is an understatement. So I'm really excited because we talk about and I know we're getting off topic, but I got to flow with this. We talk about new technology and all of that stuff, and to say that there's new technology when it comes to the metals industry is an understatement. We're seeing so many things being done now that haven't been done in the past. I'm talking about the last 10 years with silver, with other metals, when we're talking about binding metals for strength and all kinds of amazing things that we haven't seen in the past 50, since essentially we were taking off the gold standard. Technology is moving, at a pace that's just blowing my mind, where we're even talking about colonizing Mars. You can't do that without, precious metals, base metals, rare earth metals, And so, yeah, when you talk about people wanting to come and get information on advancements, or, where you're getting the material and then what it's going to be used for, that's what's getting me excited. And I know the entire sector, to be honest with you, I think in the last 10 years of me being an investor, I've never seen this much excitement.
I agree. I've worked quite a bit in lithium in my career, right at the forefront of the innovations with electric vehicles. High energy density, smaller, lighter batteries, longer range. Moving your power around with you in an electric vehicle. And so I've seen that at the forefront. And I would say there's a paradigm shift. Maybe it's a little more than 10 years ago, Travis. But if you look at the copper price, and that's a constituent of these coin metals. Copper price was, over the long term, it was returning to a declining base price, inflation adjusted. And maybe that changed about 2004, Travis. And when you look at that, you can look at the long-term copper price and you see it sort of declining, because we were just so good at finding it and innovating and producing it at lower cost.
Yep.
But maybe about 2004, certainly the mid 2000s, this booming middle class in China and India and elsewhere was demanding to electrify their lives. Okay. And now piling on that, we're electrifying more of our lives in a mobile power sort of way, taking power with us. An electric vehicle uses way more copper than an internal combustion vehicle, for instance. So that's just one example. And we can do the same thing with nickel, a very big component of lithium batteries, zinc and its many applications in electronics for years. So these metals all are responding to this technology. It's not just that there's more people on Earth, but quality of life is rising, and superimposed on all of that is what is happening with our currency and what is the purchasing power of our currency. Yeah. And we miners are just trying to respond to it.
And that's a great point, because, I don't give out investment advice, but I'm an investor and I love to look at what the next thing is. And I think a lot of people, the mining sector, the metal sector has been really quiet for the last 10 years since we saw the last run up of silver to the high 40s. And what I think is very interesting is that I think a lot of people, well, not now with the invention of Wall Street Silver, let's say a bunch of people getting together, hundreds of thousands of people now getting together and talking about this stuff. But a lot of people aren't paying attention to what's going on with the money supply. But on top of that, because that can affect metals prices, but also the technological advances. And like you said, the mining industry moves slow until all of a sudden it doesn't, and then it takes off. And I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but would you agree with me that you feel in your soul that something's about to move?
Oh, things are changing for sure. The shortages we're seeing, but human beings, Travis, goes right back to human beings. I'm spending now, after 30 years in this business, more of my time trying to find the best and brightest technical people to get them into this business, not just at my actual job, but in my sort of extracurriculars, my professional societies and what have you. I'm trying to find the best and the brightest to talk about how fast moving and dynamic this business can be, because we've got to find a lot more metal to put roofs over everyone's heads, cell phones in everyone's hands, and coins in everyone's pocket.
That's great. You know, and I'm glad you brought up metal, because we might want to touch on that in another interview, because a lot of people have been talking about the steel prices that are going up. They're freaking out because I made the call that lumber was going to collapse by mid-summer back in spring. I nailed that one, but people are begging me, talk about steel, and that might be a really good topic. So if you guys are watching this, throw down in the comment section what you'd like us to talk about. You know, I've got an expert, a geologist in the mining industry, and you know, products that make steel come right out of the ground. So if that's something you guys want to watch, I'd like for you to put in the comment section. So hey, Patrick, before we take off, is there anything else you want to talk about until we meet again at the Silver Symposium?
Well, I sure look forward to that. So many of us have interacted electronically, Zoom and telephone, for the last year, and not a lot of in-person. And of course, the Coeur d'Alene conference will be in person. Looking forward to that. And I guess I'm just really want to champion what you're doing with your YouTube channel, Travis. The idea of thinking a little bit about where things come from and what the implications are for economics and markets from that. And that's just, music to the ears of us in the mining industry, asking yourself, where do these things come from and how does that market look? And are there investment opportunities here, employment opportunities here, or just entertainment in reading the bloody news releases and the sort of propaganda that various groups are putting out there? So yeah, that's my main thing. Think about where things in your lives come from, coins in your pocket, and such. And then I imagine you'll find a lot of connections, as you have in the mining industry, getting to know people that you never thought you'd be getting to know. So great opportunity for us to talk to a different audience as well today about this subject. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome, and thank you. And to say, yeah, meeting new people and discovering new things in the last year is the understatement of the year when it comes to the Economic Ninja channel. I'm super excited to meet all you guys. Like I said, in person, shaking hands, hugging. I have a feeling that the hype level is going to go to a level 11 as far as the metals industry goes. So I'm really excited to see all you guys up there. So, well, okay. Well, with that being said, I thank you so much, Patrick, for joining us, and everybody else that's out there. Thanks for their great comments and questions in this video, because I am going to take those very seriously and think about future interviews that I could be doing about this sector, about supply chain issues. And again, guys, thank you so much. So with that being said, the Economic Ninja is out.
What's wrong, Ninja?
You called me Travis, like the entire time, like it was Travis. I know it's my name, but we got to stick with brand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ninja. I got the brand staring me right in the face, and I blew it.
That's okay.
Ninja
I was looking.
It is, my friend. Ninja, it is.
I was looking at you the entire time in the camera, and I'm like, oh, there's a camera. I got to keep. It's not just you. The ninja has his faults as well. But next time we'll go ninja. How's that?
Ninja all the way.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.